This is a short documentary about the area of Belgrave and how it has changed over the past 100 years.
We have worked progressively as a team for the past 12 months researching primary resources about the area.
These have included
old maps, photographs,
articles,
the internet
and microfilms. We have also interviewed the residents of the Belgrave area.
We hope
you enjoy it. Looking at a map of modern day Belgrave, it's difficult to believe it hasn't always looked like this, especially if you've been born or brought up in the area. It's basically all you've ever known, and to your mind, this is Belgrave. Back in 1930s, the area looked very different. Today there are around 2,000 houses in Belgrave, but back then there was about 80 houses with only 3 roads.
So we do tend to take where we are for granted and not really think about how it might have changed. That's why we wanted to do this project.
We knew that most of the houses in Belgrave were built in the 1970s. Nearly all of them, in fact. This made us think, what was here before? Were there houses that were knocked down? If so, why? Who lived here and what did they do? Where did they work? Were there schools here before ours?
This film is going to look at Belgrave at 2 periods in time. Belgrave before 1970 and Belgrave after 1970. Why 1970? 1970 was a time when this area underwent such massive development that it changed, literally, out of all recognition.
It's because we're full of the place that was absolutely smothered in bell pits. Bell pit was you go down as far as the coal, go out as far as you dare without any air, then you go along a little bit farther, dig the next one and fill that in. I've got one in my lawn. When they built these houses here, we found a series of them. You'll see some of them on that map. Yes, Belgrave, because it was a grave for a lot of people.
Belgrave is situated to the south of Tamworth, in the county of Staffordshire, and is nestled between Wilnecote to the south, Glasgow Heath to the east and Two Gates to the west. As the population grew, following the baby boom, these small villages gradually expanded to form one large area.
This 1923 map shows a full extent of Belgrave with only 3 roads and about 80 houses. There was a mine shaft very close to the village, and where Morrison's is now was a pipe and pottery works which used local clay. To service all the industry there was a complex system of railway lines, as can be seen on the left of the map. The name Bird's Bush is an old name that was given to the primary school that stands there.
This map shows the 3 roads, Wilnecote Lane, Belgrave Road and Fen Street. It also shows the club. These 3 roads are still here today and follow the same plan as they did before the development. The row of shops that are on Wilnecote Road are still there but have changed usage.
The social club was formed in the early 1900s in Fen Street. It eventually moved to its present site in Wilnecote Lane and had the intriguing title of Belgrave Miners' Welfare and Village Hall Institute, eventually becoming Belgrave Sports and Social Club.
The Beauchamp Colliery was one of many in the area. Little or no record of it exists now. All we know is that it was a major employer in the area, and may indeed have been the reason why Belgrave exists at all. Nothing remains now except these photographs, and the social club, which has its roots in the mine. This plaque on a building near to Morrison's shows its former purpose. How many people look at that now?
Although not strictly in Belgrave, the area that is now Morrison's used to be Dalton's Pottery Works. Royal Dalton was based in London but had factories in Stoke-on-Trent and Tamworth and made very fine pottery which is highly valued today. George Gay started his enterprise in 1860. It rapidly expanded and became one of the most important pottery works in the country. Wilnecote Works has a huge place and functioned from 1860 till 1936, when it was taken over by Dalton. The buildings were finally demolished in 1981.
Well, for a start off, I'll tell you, this was Summerfield's farm where we are now. Right. It was all fields, and I used to potato pick it here.
And you come to Summerfield's farm. On the right-hand side, there was some bungalows, and I think there was 2 houses. And on the other side was when you gone along a bit, Summerfield's farmhouse. And I think they owned Hanbury Farm as well.
Every year, mind you, it was hard work, but we had some fun. And when it was all over, he used to bring us a bag of potatoes when it was all over.
You come along a bit, there was Fields Farm, where roughly, possibly where Fields Farm Road is.
It was all fields, nothing like this. And mostly it was more fields, you know, in Belgrave.
In the distance, there was a spinney, and there used to be a lot of foxes and that over there.
So yes, it was a very pleasant village, and it was a mining village. It lived on coal.
All the villagers knew each other, like we did up here. You could go up the street and you knew everybody. She used to leave the door open for me, and she had her groceries, and she used to leave the grocery book with the money in on the stove opposite the back door, and it was always there. There was 1 or 2 houses like that. He used to leave the money, and it was always there. You could trust. I mean, my mother used to always go up the street and not lock the door.
We had a meeting in the Working Men's Club, and I couldn't believe it. You know, everything was going to disappear. The first, of course, happened on lakes, over on the lakeside, and you see, there was so much clay under here. Everyone had thought that it'd be reserved forever and ever to use the clay, because it's not a commodity that grows, it's there. And
all our houses were condemned, that's right. It was old out. Mine had been looked after, but they couldn't want to look after them. And of course our houses were condemned. So we moved from there, we still called it Belgrave anyway, into the new council houses. Well, there was new then.
It was a shame, really, to do what they did. But if you're sensible about it, it was inevitable. It's like the anchor development up the Ashby Road. No matter how much you cry, we have got to build houses.
It was beautiful. There was. Towards there was, because we got a bathroom and that, you know. Oh, we thought we was in a castle. And when we settled down, but no, we didn't bother after. But at the time, we did, because we was all friends together and helped one another. Down the Watton Street, well, Belgrave, we called it Belgrave, there was a big brick firm, Dalton's.
It became Skeys and Dalton. That's when Mr Bailey come to Wilnecote Hall, and he was the managing director.
It was a big firm, that was. And of course, it was the same as everywhere else during the war. We lived up Belgrave Road in the old houses then, off the main road. And there was a pathway to walk into Dalton's. I worked there for a while.
Yes, me brother-in-law worked there making the very large insulators. And Len Coolin from Drayton Bassett, he worked there as well. and others. Brian Watkins has lived opposite us. He worked there, and he moved to Stoke with it.
Of course, after the war, it closed down, and then of course you got all the garages and that down there. There's nothing, you know, just garages and that.
A little bit rubby. It came near to the road, and they had some sort of slanting windows that opened.
It was filthy. It was all black clay, and it was for the war. There was all cylinders and that you made. It was. They did a lot of trade. Of course, it was war, weren't it? But it wasn't a very nice place.
You didn't see an awful lot in the back there because it was quite enclosed.
It was the money weren't much good, but it was a dirty job. But of course, them days you had to go where the council, the council that wanted you to go. It was all nothing like this. Black leg grates, and you used to have to shovel the make a fire, and then get the the coal fire underneath and like the oven, you know, to cook with. And then you had the great big iron pots. They used to do all your cooking on that, stew and that, over this great big, what's the name? Oh, it was hard work. And then, of course, you hadn't got a council, you hadn't got a bathroom. I used to have old tin baths, hang them outside the wall. Then we used to bring them in, and we got a copper then for washing. And you used to boil this copper up and empty that into the bath and have a bath like that. The coal fires was lovely, mind you, when once you got them going. They was nice and cosy. I used to have rugs, we used to do the rugs ourselves, cut all old coats and different things, and we used to peg them. Got that in front of, it was ever so cosy it was. Of course my dad got killed down the pit. I didn't know him at all. He was only 30 odd when he got killed, so my mother was left with 6 on us, and we expected my youngest son, my youngest brother I should say. So she had a hard life, and she used to do us a lot of stew on this great big iron pot, you know. And when I started work at our school, we all had to go into service. Mother didn't expect, and we all went to Coventry. 4 of us went to Coventry. And the main thing was that my grandma Poultney, she got a fish and chip shop at Warden. This was one though. And I used to go up there to help her out, take baskets of fish and chips. And I used to help do the spuds and that, you know, for the chips and that. And then after a week, after doing all this, she used to give me a bag of fish and chips. That was my wage. And I don't know them more these days.
Well, up Fen Street, there was a dear lady, Mrs. Butler, Granny Butler, who had a little, used to go down steps into the front room, which was the shop, and she used to sell some stuff called Indian brandy. She also sold everything else, from thick twist for either chewing or smoking, and tobacco of course, and pretty unhealthy really.
There was the main shop was the corner shop. It was Congrave's for years, and well, Belgrave stores is still there. Little bit like a supermarket now. And then there was Faulkner's shop.
Now beyond down the same entry was Aldrich, the old man Aldrich, who had the boot menders. He was the boot maker. Now my dad took me when I was 15, I left school just before I was 15, for him to make me a pair of pit boots. And he made them over the weekend. He took me down on Friday when I was leaving. I left school on Thursday, Good Friday, played football for the Paisley Shield. Friday night came back, he took me to him and he made the boots and I had them Monday and went to work on them on Tuesday.
And there was another house farther back from that, and that was a shoe repairer's.
The other shop was Congrave's. It was a corner shop, outdoor, flap outside for the beer to go down there. Not the most hygienic of all shops, but he used to boil this wonderful big piece of ham in a black pot, which I don't think ever got washed, either inside or outside, but it tasted so good. Probably just after the war, any meat tasted good, didn't it?
It was built, I think the Methodist Church built it, and then I don't know really what happened, whether it went down or what happened, but...
And of course, I say we had this mission, which was built, whether it was built as multi-faith, I'm not sure, but had some wonderful, wonderful times there. I suppose it was the start of my spiritual beginning.
He later became Canon Lawley Brown. He bought it, and Mark, while he was vicar here in the church, bought it. And they used to have evensong every other Tuesday night, and they had a ladies' class there, and I've done the Christmas party there 2 or 3 times.
But we had, we had a wonderful superintendent named Mrs. Bennett, and she came to the Black Country, and she had this, of course, Black Country accent, and of course it was quite, and I remember having an argument with my mum about it being our father, or our father, our father. That was what she taught us, our father.
There used to be a Sunday school there when the Methodists had it, and I think there was a Sunday school when the Church of England took it over.
We had a pot-bellied stove which used to glow. It used to get so hot and it would glow in that thing. And everybody subscribed a bucket of Coke or a bucket of coal. So it was nothing to see kids going to Sunday school with a bucket of coal between them for the fire.
And that went until Harper was vicar, Alan Harper was vicar at Woolnicott, and it run out of money. There's nothing there where it was because the Mormons bought it. Without planning permission, they knocked it down.
I got an email and the doctor said I got a outside job, and used to be there about 7:30 in the morning. Horse and cart it was, horse and cart.
I had an electric vehicle. We started about 7:30 I got there for 7:30 in the morning. The folks would be going to Mass then, at 7:30 in the morning, when Father Gaffney was at Tamworth years.
There was 2 old women. We used to have to saddle the horse and that, you know, and fill it up with the bread and cakes, whatever, and then do your rounds. We was on the Belgrave round then.
And then you'd load your vehicle and count your bread up and see as it was right, and then you'd go round and fetch your confectionery, and then you'd start off.
And this one morning, it was foggy and slippery and that, and we was going up the over the canal bridge at Cattlebrook. I don't know if you know which, leading into it, and of course it was slippery, so the horse went down and tipped all the bread on. Oh well, it was frightening though. Of course they come out the parking, which was the pub then, and found there was, so they had to come out to us. Well, I worked there for a while. It was hard work, and it was only £3.20 a week, you know.
Take the confectionery round in the baskets, and I built the journey up. Really, it was only £11 a week confectionery, and I built it up to. I can't really remember the amount, but 20 odd pound anyway.
Say it was only 5p. Sure, you got it. They stopped that out of your wages. And then my husband, I hadn't seen him for 18 months, I think it was. He was in the army, and of course he got a week's leave. So I said to the gaffer, I said about him coming home, will it be all right to have a week's leave? And he said, no, it won't. He said, so sure that you take that week off. He said, you have your cards. Well, of course, I weren't going to stop, you know. So I took this week off. Well, naturally, I went back to work on the Monday. I only had a week off. And I walked up the steps, which you got to do, the stairs. And he said, what do you come here for? I says, back to work. He said, well, you just turn round and go back. He says, you're finished. And he sacked me.
Hanbury's farm was built on land that was previously a farm of the same name. It was the first primary school to be built on the new Belgrave estate. When it first opened, it had over 500 children on roll. The amount of pupils at the school was so big that some children had to take their meals to a nearby church. When Bird's Bush and St Gabriel's were built, many children moved to the school nearest to them, and numbers eventually dropped to their current level at around 180 children.
There was 500 children we started with. There was mobile classrooms. There was 2 at the top, 2 down the side, and 2 in this playground here. So you can imagine, you know, we had quite a few pupils. The big thing that happened was they built Bird's Bush, right? And the ones who lived up at you know, in their catchment area, they all changed to go there because obviously they couldn't walk. You know, they got to walk down here. So that was what, you know, took about 200 pupils away, I suppose, you know. And then gradually we got rid of the mobiles because we didn't need them because, you know, the numbers had gone down. Mr Norton and Mr Cox, they were all interested in football. I mean, obviously Mr Cox was Welsh, so he took the rugby. Dave took the football, and who else? And of course then, when we went to play with other schools, oh God, Amby Farms here, we ain't going to win. They were defeated before, you know, they even walked through the door because they were so good. They were good.
The late 60s and early 70s saw a boom in population and wealth in the UK. There was a post-war confidence which saw huge amounts of redevelopment across the country, including Tamworth. With the demolishing of Victorian houses in Birmingham, the overspill population was moved to the south of Tamworth, resulting in thousands of new homes, including Belgrave, which changed beyond recognition. 80 houses became over 2,000. 3 primary schools and a high school were built. New shopping areas, doctors' surgeries and the Baptist church were also built, and the new Belgrave began to take shape.
My first impression when I came here, which doesn't sound very pleasant, but it's a statement of fact, is that the place was filthy. There was litter absolutely everywhere, and as I drove into the car park and walked into the school, I could not believe just how much litter there was, not just around the corridors outside of the school, but also blown against the fences around the school, and it looked terrible.
I came to school in 1988, in April at Easter. Came from a school down in Sussex. Quite a different school to this one, very middle class, but actually I thought the kids were a lot better here actually.
Well, the first thing I wanted to do was make the place a lot cleaner. And you will know a lady called Josie who cleans around the school, and she was the first person I appointed to the staff. The second person I appointed was then somebody like Josie who would deal with outside, so we began to actually smarten ourselves up and start to look like a school. Well, I think we've made a lot of changes over the last few years, and the only thing we need to change continually year on year is that there are better opportunities for all of the students and that the outcomes for all of you become higher and higher and higher.
But when I first came, there'd be no such things like performing arts, for instance, ICT. There weren't computers then. Girls who did, and it used to be girls who did most of it, did actual typewriting, so they had typewriters in the rooms. So all computers came on after I'd started, so that's changed. We used to do in design, we used to have woodwork and metalwork, they didn't call it resistant materials. And also they used to do motor vehicle technology, where they mended motorbikes and cars and things like that. So been some big changes in the curriculum.
I've always found the students here to be very pleasant. And I remember the head teacher saying to me when I came here, he said, "You won't like it here because the kids here are really rough." Well, I never saw that. I've never ever seen that.
The average student at Belgrave, I think, is somebody who has to be encouraged often to become an effective learner. Not all of you come in understanding fully the importance of what we're trying to do here. I think what's also true to say is the average student wants to be encouraged to be a good learner.
In the 40 or so years the new Belgrave has existed, things have changed. Playgrounds have disappeared, shops have come and gone, new buildings have appeared. It has, like any other community, changed, and will do in the future. Thanks to these students at TEC Belgrave, a little more is known about the area, and more has been preserved for the future.
Thank you for watching our short documentary about the Belgrave area.
We hope you enjoyed it.
Bye!